Hey, it didn't start recording, did it? Yes, it has. Okay. So it took a little longer than I expected. Anyway, so let's get started with my wish and then continue from there. Kama ji, Kama, why don't you read my wish?
Jai Baba,
Jai Baba.
the lover has to keep the wish of the beloved. My wish for my lovers is as follows. Do not shirk your responsibilities. Attend faithfully to your worldly duties, but keep always at the back of your mind that all this is Baba's. When you feel happy, think, Baba wants me to be happy. When you suffer, think, Baba wants me to suffer. Be resigned to every situation and think honestly and sincerely, Baba has placed me in this situation. With the understanding that Baba is in everyone, try to help and serve others. I say with my divine authority to each and all that whosoever takes my name at the time of breathing his last comes to me. So do not forget to remember me in your last moments. Unless you start remembering me from now on, it will be difficult to remember me when your end approaches. You should start practicing from now on. Even if you take my name only once every day, you will not forget to remember me in your dying moments.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Thanks for that. So let's continue with discourses, our repeat journey that we are doing with the recording mix-up. So where are we now? So let's do our filter. This again, I'm repeating so that everybody learns to do it. So you just click on 23 reading. We have finished 3 things is what it's telling us. Now we start with the next step. So after new humanity, what the last one is the epilogue, 12 ways of loving me, 12 ways of realizing me, sorry. And then from that we go to spirit and matter. So we'll go in the sequence of the cards, which is life of the spirit, violence and non-violence further explained. Avenues to understanding, infinity of the truth, travail of the new world order, and live for God and die for God. So I have a few thoughts here, and I think I know we need not derail the whole call, but Kama, we can change the sequence in this. I think infinity of the truth comes first, then life of the spirit, and violence and non-violence, the 2 chapters actually go completely to the end of this, right? Because it's literally something that you process after you process the difference between spirit and matter, is my view, right? So after this would ideally be in fact we can start with travel of the new world order, or move travel of the new world order to info general, right? So just my thought, right? Think about it and let me know. In fact, we can't. We don't have time. After epilogue, I suggest we read the Travail of the New Order and then go on with the rest. You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me move that here. In fact, if that's what we're doing, it's more relevant to do humanity followed by Travail of the New World Order, then do 12 ways of realizing me. The rest are all related to spirit and matter. And that we can do in the sequence life of the spirit, followed by avenues to understanding, followed by live for God and die for God, infinity of the truth, and then you do violence and non-violence, 2 chapters. Deal? Sounds good?
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering about the 12 ways of realizing me is more like a
It's more
message or a
almost
prayer like 7
exactly
realities. So we can keep
correct.
it at the end, So don't mix that with spirit and matter right now.
No, it's not spirit and matter. See, this is info general. So this is along with seven realities and introduction. So we're still there. We have not yet
Oh, okay.
started spirit and matter. Okay. So we
Oh,
do
okay, okay.
travail of the new humanity, travail of the new order, and epilogue and seven realities are really general stuff, right? It's general messages that Baba has given and not really a discourse, right?
Right. What about that one small chapter on war that that comes after before reincarnation and karma or something? Let me see. That one small die or hold on.
Sure. That's this one, Kama. That is the travail of the new world order.
The travel of the new order and live for God and die for God, because that is something related to the war part. You know, the page number 339. Live for God and die for
Yeah, I
God.
got it. I got it. It's in spirit and
Yeah.
matter, but that's related to more spirit and matter, I thought.
Okay.
Okay. So I think at
All
least
right.
if you take the tone and tenor of new new human, I mean the travel of the new world order and new humanity, they're very similar, right? They're very
Yeah. On a macro
yeah.
basis, for me, it
They're,
comes under spirit and matter. I don't look at it as an intro or info kind of thing. You know,
yeah, we
it's
could
kind
do
of
that
it's
as
an
well.
introduction. Yeah.
We could do
Why
that.
complicate it? Just put it simply as like, you know. So okay, go ahead.
That's it. No, I already moved it. Are you seeing my screen? I
Yeah.
agree with you. So just do travail, then epilogue, 12 ways of oh sorry, this goes here. Sorry guys, what do the others think? We don't want to derail this, but we want to do it right.
It must be
The
okay.
others are like
Let's
the others
proceed.
are like get started, man. We do
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
want.
yeah.
You guys are
You have debated it and you are fine tuning it. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So let's do epilogue now. May this small one. Let me read this. This is the epilogue. Epilogue. I don't know. How do you pronounce that? Okay, I'll read 12 ways of realizing me. Number one, longing. If you experience that same longing and thirst for union with me as one who has been lying for days in the hot sun of the Sahara experiences the longing for water, then you will realize me. I'll read that again. If you experience that same longing and thirst for union with me, as one who has been lying for days in the hot sun of the Sahara experiences the longing for water, then you will realize me. Something around the grammar here. Yeah, it's okay. It's correct. If you experience that same longing and thirst for union with me, as one who has been lying for days in the hot sun of the Sahara experiences the longing for water, then you will realize me. Number two, peace of mind. If you have the peace of a frozen lake, then too you will realize me. Number three, humility. If you have the humility of earth, which can be modeled into any shape, then you will know me. Number four, desperation. If you experience the desperation that causes a person to commit suicide and you feel that you cannot live without seeing me, then you will see me. Number five, faith. If you have the complete faith that Kalyan had in his master, in believing it was night, although it was day, because his master said so, then you will know me. Number 6, if you have the fidelity that your breath has in keeping you company till the end of your life, even without your constantly feeling it, both in happiness and suffering, never turning against you, then you will know me. Control through love. When your love for me drives away your lust for the things of the senses, then you will realize me. So I'll pause here. Any thoughts on the ones till we read till now? So words like these we have got in other messages as well. Longing and Sahara for water, peace of mind like a frozen lake. Humility is, here the analogy is earth. Earth can lend itself to be modeled like anything. Desperation, again, desperation to the
Molded.
point of suicide. Yeah.
Yeah,
Desperation
Karthik,
to,
to me it is so hard a thing that is kind of speechless what it is, what to discuss in this actually.
yeah. No, because each one
Yeah,
is so profound.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I suggest that we add this into our, we read some
Yes, I was
messages in
thinking.
the
Yes. I was
beginning we
thinking the
read.
same.
So let us include this and maybe make a slide or something. Yeah.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fidelity, again, I love this one. If you have the fidelity that your breath has in keeping you company till the end of your life, even without your constantly feeling it, both in happiness and suffering, never turning against you, then you will know me. 7, control through love. When your love for me drives away your lust for the things of the senses, then you will realize me. Here, what is the control through love? What are you controlling through your love? Question. So it's more than control. It is love replacing lust. Then you realize me, right?
No, it is
8.
about self-awareness, control. I think the word control is not the right
Yeah.
English word, ambiguity, because control is like Newton's third law of motion, action begets reaction,
Mm-hmm.
where it is actually control is like spending. Of course, one has to look at it at context, but I prefer the word awareness. So if you're aware, then you do intelligent action. You kind of unwind your sanskaras. You're not reacting. Controlling is a form of reaction. So it's a very subtle thing between control and awareness. Awareness is a form of observation, a witness. If you're able to witness your anger, then you won't react to that anger. But if you try to control that anger, that is still going to be there just because you have not. So there is a subtle way of looking at it out here. And also when he says, when you love, when your love for me, I interpret it as me means your innermost loving self. See, we have to transcend the form of Baba. I keep repeating that again and again. I mean, a lot of people don't like that because it's like the Hare Krishna movement. They like to identify with the form, but we know that the form changes. So we have to be very, very clear whenever the word me comes, whenever the word God comes, whenever the word Baba comes or Krishna or whatever, it is actually talking about our innermost loving self, oils. Jai Baba.
Yeah. That's a good reminder for all of us. Selfless service, number 8. If you have the quality of selfless service, unaffected by results similar to that of the sun, which serves the world by shining on all creation, on the grass in the field, on the birds in the air, on the beasts in the forest, on all of mankind with its sinners and saints, its rich and poor, unmindful of the attitude toward it, then you will win me, our innermost loving self. Number 9. Renunciation. If you renounce for me everything physical, mental, and spiritual, then you will have me. Number 10, obedience. If your obedience is as spontaneous, complete, and natural as light is to the eye or smell to the nose, then you will come to me. Number 11, surrenderance. If your surrenderance to me is as wholehearted as that of one who, suffering from insomnia, surrenders to sudden sleep without fear of being lost, then you will have me. Number 12, love. If you have that love for me that Saint Francis had for Jesus, then not only will you realize me, but you will please me. Dear Baba. Okay.
Here in all the quotes or dictums that Baba has given, there is that extreme last step. So you have to go to that extreme last step. Then alone you will realize him.
Yeah, there is that extreme last step. So yes and no. So if you take stuff like selfless service, it's even there it's the
Yes.
height of selfless service, right? The
Yes,
height
yes.
of selflessness and so on. Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically in all the all the concepts that we have covered here. So again, I'll read just the titles. You have longing, peace of mind, humility, desperation, faith, fidelity, control through love, selfless service, renunciation, obedience, surrenderance, and love. So all of them, the extreme forms of it, or more than extreme, the highest and most full forms of the same is what we need.
Yes.
What I'm still not semantically understanding, and like he said, surrenderance is, control is the wrong word, but I don't know if awareness is the alternate. Awareness through love. When your love for me drives away your lust for the things of the senses, then you will realize me. Yeah, I think that's much better than control through love. Yeah.
It's more about awareness of your sensations. If you look at it, I think what jumps out for me is the five senses: touch, taste, sound, smell, sight. And it relates to the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. So it is interestingly, if you look at it, it is when he talks about the light, which is heat, temperature. And I've read in Kriya Yoga, which is very interesting. We all know that, I sent one link about the atom. Everything about the atom, what is happening inside, manifests itself on the external world. So what we see out here is that the five elements in the body is like blood is like water is like blood. Heat is like temperature of the body. The space is basically the space between the organs. And the organs are basically like earth, matter. And the air we breathe is the oxygen. So there's a very interesting analogy out here. And I think each one of this is basically a mutually exclusive event. And another way of looking at it is a human being is like head, heart, hands. So head is Jnana Yoga, heart is Bhakti Yoga, and hands is Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga can be looked as a form of selfless service. And then Bhakti Yoga, heart, is the full devotion like Tukaram or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And if you have a Jnana Yoga, you can look at it from the point of Ramana Maharishi or Nisargadatta Maharaj. But of course, Baba encapsulates everything, he's for everybody. If you want to do Bhakti, you can do it. If you want Jnana, it's like God speaks. And if you want to do selfless service, because Baba's message is unconditional love and selfless service. Hey, Baba.
On your 5 elements and 5 senses, is there a one-to-one correlation or just a number-based broader correlation?
No, there is, I mean, it's just an analogy, because all these
Okay, all
metaphysical
right.
truths, we are just using metaphors and, allegories. So one need not go so deep, but it's just the way Baba has explained here. When he talks about all these different things like selfless service, it's like the sun, and that's like a good analogy to understand what it means, that
Sure.
whatever you
I
do
just
in
wanted to
life,
check. Yeah.
yeah, like the Gita principle, focus on the means or do action, but don't worry about the results of your action, kind of stuff, Jai Baba.
All right. Thanks. Okay, so let's go to the next chapter then. After the epilogue. Hey, it's spirit and matter. Oh, this should be here.
Next is travels of the new world
Of
order.
the new, yes. Perfect.
Page number 298 on the book. Yeah.
Okay, do you want to read Sanjay ji?
Yeah, I'm good to read. Not a problem.
Please.
So I'm reading from the book, so you can keep.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The travel of the new world order. The world storm that has been gathering momentum is now having its greatest outburst. And in reaching its climax, it will work universal disaster. In the struggle for material well-being, all grievances have assumed fantastic proportions, and the various differences of human interests have been so accentuated that they have precipitated distinctive conflict. Humanity has failed to solve its individual and social problems, and the evidence of this failure is very clear. The incapacity of people to deal with their problems constructively and creatively reveals a tragic deficiency in the right understanding of the basic nature of man and the true purpose of life.
Can I stop here?
Yeah.
Can anyone explain this paragraph? It's very, very, say, profound. We need some examples to understand this in our present context, I think.
Jai Baba, I think, of course, the current situation in the world is a clear example of what is described here in this particular paragraph. Humanity has failed to solve its individual and social problems, and the evidence for this failure is very clear. We know the 1% is owning 99% approximately of the wealth, and we see different categories of people. And personally, what I've seen is, having lived in the US, gone through the analog to the digital era. The US was very self-sufficient after World War II, blue-collar job, white-collar jobs, and so on. And then when they started working with China, the blue-collar jobs went to China. And then thanks to information technology, people who were educated could transition. But then again, information technology became outsourced. We know all the problems that, visa problems that Americans don't like outsiders coming to US, because the companies are making profits based on the leverage, the financial leverage that they get from using third world labor. I mean, we should not be calling ourselves third
Arbitrage.
world.
Yeah.
Correct, the arbitrage. So today I was reading, the Guardian about booking.com. It was very interesting to see that many of the people, booking.com, very interestingly, has almost 30% margin. They made like 15 billion in revenues, about 5 billion, 3 billion of profits at the cost of, they almost owe 1.6 billion to hotels. They have not paid, actually. A lot of people went bankrupt and all that. So in a way, technology has been very great for us, but it's being misused and abused by the wannabes. So I think here, the incapacity of people to deal with their problems constructively and creatively reveals a tragic deficiency in the right understanding of the basic nature of man and the true purpose of life. So the true purpose of life, from God speaks is, who am I? I think that is the only real question. We are all here, why we are born, why we have relationships, why do we get married, what is the significance of male and female incarnations, which is all there in discourses. So anyway, I'll stop here because others will like to give their own inputs. Jai Baba.
So I think I agree with you.
Also, the true understanding means connecting everything with God, and which the entire humanity is lacking. Spiritually, also, even in the material world, you need to, even creatively. God is removed from everywhere, all the paintings, all the creative, whichever thing you say. So that's the core point, that we have God is on the other side and others, so we have made separate divisions and God is one of them. So this is a place where we are lacking, the entire
But how
humanity.
do we define God? How do we define God? That is the first
Hey, we
point
are
here.
diverging. We are diverging. The question very clearly is, how do we understand this paragraph, right? So I think, yes, that there is a slipping away from God that has happened. But if you look at just the limited view of this paragraph, it is, I'd like to use the word that Mamaji used in the last chapter, which is extreme, right? So all the things have slipped away to the extreme. So in the ability of the material progress, and in the lust, anger, greed, all the aspects of negative, or I shouldn't use the word negative. We are reading discourses. So the storm has actually, the world storm has peaked. That's the message I'm getting here, right? So that's the message I'm taking away. Does that kind of help, Mamaji?
It did help. The thing is, as Nehaji put it, we seem to
Go
keep
away
God
from God.
away in all our dealings in the world. That is
Correct.
the total storm or the deficiency.
No, but that's the answer, or that's the reason that has led us to here. But if you look at it just as the paragraph that's here, yes, it's just talking about the slipping away of human life and the world itself to far away from the true purpose. And
Yes.
yeah, okay, let's continue.
Yeah. But Jai Baba, but this is not the first time this has happened, okay? This is just one
Yes.
part that is happening in this era in a different form. And the way I look at it from a practical point of view is, it's a conflict between material life and spiritual life. What we call as the material life or spiritual freedom based on Maslow's self-actualization, and the spiritual life, which is about self-realization or God realization. So I personally, I've said this before, putting the cart before the horse. Before you try for spiritual freedom, work on your material freedom and parallelly work on your spiritual freedom. And the issue is, sorry if I'm making this a point, we see in Mehrabad, I know a lot of people who are out there. Of course, everybody is looking for spiritual freedom, but a lot of people are struggling with their material freedom. And so what I see in the world is basically that a lot of people who have material freedom don't have a clue about spiritual freedom because they are totally attached to their material life, materialism. And this can go on and on, but the basic truth out here is whether we are able to balance our material life and spiritual life, and are we able to get our material freedom, what we call as financial security, to get out of the rat race and focus 100% on your spiritual life, which can also include whatever work you're doing. Jai Baba.
That's
Okay,
correct,
so I
Kama.
think
But
this,
getting out of the rat race, what is that point is what the spiritual understanding defines actually. Because ultimately there is no end. How much
yes.
material wealth is actually that you need. So unless you have
Why,
that
why,
spiritual
who says so?
understanding,
That
then
is
only
not
you get to transcend. Now this is enough for me. There is that enough
no. How
is
can you?
different from different
There is
people.
nothing like,
Yeah.
yes. I think
Yes,
for
yes. That's
somebody
what
who
I'm
can
saying.
live on 50,000 rupees or 100,000
Yes.
rupees, but the
Yes,
problem is
yes.
man's ego. I think we
Yeah.
can all live a simple, frugal life. We can all
Definitely.
have a low carbon footprint, but we all want to have fancy cars and live penthouses with air conditioners. Hey, let's start with
Yes,
ourselves.
yes. Yes, yes. That's correct. Good
So
discussion.
again, I
Yeah.
think good discussion. But to extend Sanjayji's point, there is no one answer for everybody, right? So the each one to themselves, and the idea of material freedom is personal in the sense that somebody may decide to live a lot more frugally with a lot lesser carbon footprint and even actual cash out burn, and somebody else may do something else. So it's left to themselves, and if I dare say, it's left to their sanskaras as well. So who are we to question that? But yes, your
That's what
point is
Kama
well
says.
taken.
We live,
Yeah,
yeah, we live our material life spiritually, actually. That's what Kama says, and I love that
yeah,
phrase.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, the whole idea is how you living a material life, spiritually speaking. That is correct. And the point here is, do you want to have a simple life or a complicated life? You know,
Yes.
and that is, of course,
Yeah,
different strokes for different folks, how they
Yes.
look at it. See, I have nothing against people living in penthouses or whatever, as long as they're not attached, But
Yes.
it's not that
exactly,
people who are rich.
exactly.
I'm not saying that you can't be rich and still be spiritual. That's not it. Like King Janaka is an example, But my point is that whether what we call as renunciation of action or renunciation action, are you attached to your fruits, or you're able to have that seven realities, the renunciation aspect. Yeah, Bob.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair, fair enough.
I got stuck
There
to
is
one
Ashish.
point. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
1 second. I think Ashish, then Sunil. He had
yeah.
his hands up.
Regarding, I was just listening that discussion like materialistic thing and all. I think it's sometimes it depends on or your previous sanskaras also. Means in one of the book I read, like Bhav Kulchuri's daughter, right? Sheila Kulchuri. Like she used to stay like a princess, even though like his father become very poor, right? After joining the Baba and all, because what Baba said, she in the previous life she was like a princess. That's why in this current like her what I will say, in the current time she is behaving like a princess. She's eating by knife and all. So might be if someone is buying like a very expensive car or expensive house, it might not be the like he's very connected to materialistic things. Might be like because of his previous sanskara in previous time he was very big person or very rich person.
Absolutely.
Or a very poor
That might
person.
also one of the thing.
The
Yeah, or
past
maybe
life he
very
was
poor person.
poor, and this life
It
he is
might
having this
happen.
fruit. Yeah.
Yeah, it might happen. I may have like 100 crores, but I'm living very ground life or very, or I'm like saving a lot of money and not spending anything. So sometimes it depends on the your previous sanskar also, and sometimes your current sanskar also. That's what I feel.
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Very,
That's
very correct.
perfect. Perfect.
So the test is not frugality, or the test is not
Richness.
how you are living or richness. The test is your attachment to it. So if you with due respect to that example, if somebody is eating in a fork and a spoon and enjoys that, great to even enjoy it. The test is whether you are attached to that, and if you're attached to it, then you're not living your life, material life
Yeah.
spiritually, to use that expression.
So,
Yeah.
are you saying that if I have a very polluting vehicle because I own it, that's okay?
Definitely not. Definitely not. So yeah, means
That's
if
Great
you
way
are
to
your
put
like
that.
duties and responsibilities. But what
Yes,
I think Karthik was saying, if I have a chicken hakka noodles, I am happy. If I have a bhakri, I am happy. So
yeah.
it's both ways. Yeah.
So the responsibility of, see, the damage is done the moment you bought that highly polluting vehicle. The damage is done. Okay, that's a bad example. I'm saying that if you have the means to it, and if you have a Tesla, right? A Tesla doesn't leave any footprint, but it costs an arm and a leg.
You rich guys, don't justify yourself, okay? You all are
No,
justifying yourself from
Nehaji,
very
who are you
long
talking about?
time. As
So
long
Nehaji,
as you go to the second house, third house, fourth house, or the penthouse, you are cultivating sanskaras. You are cultivating things which leads you to the next birth. So, what is your
yes,
aim?
yes.
That you need to understand. Are you in the loop of reincarnation, or you are reading God Speaks and you wants to wind up this thing? So your clarity, and you need to be focused. Yes, Baba always says that you should be self-sufficient and you should not ask God for anything. These are the basic requirements, and from last hundreds and thousands of years, we should be able to learn how to earn our living and how to lead our life. These are the basics, but you should not go bonkers
Yeah, yeah.
to
Accumulation,
just
accumulation.
justifying yourself and try to be on the path and try to understand from that
Correct.
point of view. Like Baba had everything, but such a simple life Baba and Mandli had,
Yeah, yeah.
so one has to start from that point. The focus has to be on that point, and then you need to
Mhm.
understand that why you need this money. Is it for charity? Is it for even charity is not a
Total.
good word or a good thing for in spirituality. It multiplies your karmic, so one has to be very cautious about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well
Yeah,
so
yeah.
said,
just
well
keep in
said.
mind
Well
while
said.
reading discourses. That's the only request I have.
Good point, Neha. Good point.
What's the
Yeah,
better
yeah.
word for charity? Maybe we all need that for some reason or the other.
I
What do you
think that's
mean by
help.
that question, Sunil?
Yeah,
Baba
that
said it has to be spontaneous. It has to be
Yeah,
spontaneous.
from the heart.
If from the heart, and just give and leave it. Then don't
forget
Yeah,
it.
look away and don't
If
think
you're
on
not able
that,
to
or don't.
forget it,
yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
one should be able to
Next
forget
day
it.
you should not able to think about it. Oh, gaya to gaya
Yes,
wali
yes.
baat hai.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that kind of a charity helps you a lot. But if you like to have a photograph, you like to come into the limelight with that, and you like
I
to talk to
understand. Yeah.
people, that's the best
Hmm.
way of to start your conversation. That how good a human being you are. So then you are in.
Right.
So that's how it's.
Mhm.
True. I understand.
That's
Yeah.
correct. That's
Can I bring up my point that I got stuck to?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay. So sorry about this, but I just turned on and Kama was talking about people in Mehrabad. So uh, I'm not sure why he referred just Mehrabad. I thought that was not fair because we all struggle with
I agree
material
too.
freedom. But maybe Kama can explain and I
Sunil,
can clear my
Sunil,
sanskara.
Sunil,
I created a thought sanskara in my mind. I need to erase it.
Sunil.
Yes.
In Mehrabad, there are many people who were doing good jobs and they were doing very well abroad or otherwise. They just left everything for Baba. And
Right.
they have donated so much to trust to otherwise, and so they eventually they are today, they hardly have anything. They are fine with it, because the God's life is like that live in now, and I'm holding your hand and I will take you through this. So they are leading that life which is extremely difficult,
Yes.
and they purposely designed this life. That's why I'm saying Mehrabad is extremely important than rest of the world, who out of their foolishness or out of their greed, they have made this came to this point. So Mehrabad people, yes, I am very concerned about them, because they have Baba के लिए सब छोड़ के आके बैठे हुए हैं.
I agree. I agree with
Yeah,
all that. But
I think to me,
pointing,
Kama made a
If
reference
what
that
to
we can all connect, you know, but such people are there in other societies of spiritual societies, like you have Radha Swami Faith, where I have personally
Yes,
seen
yes,
people,
yes, yes.
and there is followers of
Yes.
other gurus also who are rich people living in seclusion, leaving everything. So these examples are there. People are there on the spiritual path, need not be directly connected to Meher Baba, but on the path they are. So Mehrabad, I think example he gave, just so that
Yes, yes.
first we all go there and we can connect to what he's talking. I think that was the only purpose to me. Jai Baba.
Okay, I understand. Jai
Yeah,
Baba.
just to Sunil's comment, this is just my observation. Somebody told me, I won't name the name, what is happening in Mehrabad is reflected in the overall in the world, what we see.
Yeah.
Because ultimately what we see is human interactions and conflicts and relationships, how people deal with each other. Okay. One can look from the outside very much like, I'm right out there, I'm peaceful, I'm in bliss, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But from my observation, what I've seen, I'm not saying everybody is like that, but what I liked about the statement was what you see in Mehrabad, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is now reflected in the world. Now, how you interpret it is up to you. Jai Baba.
Okay, Jai Baba, I would like to detach myself from that. Baba, help me. Let me just focus on Baba. Okay, thanks. Thank you,
Okay.
Kamal. Yeah, thank you. Jai Baba.
Yeah. A lot of
Okay.
interesting conversation. Please
Continue.
continue. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Conflict
yes. Jai Baba.
between
Perfect.
conflict between forces of light and darkness. The world is witnessing an acute conflict between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. On the one hand, there are selfish persons who seek their happiness blindly through lust for power, unbridled greed, and unrelieved hatred. Ignorant of the real purpose of life, they have sunk to the lowest level of civilization. They bury their higher selves in the wreckage of crumbling forms that linger on from the dead past. Bound by material interests and limited conceptions, they are forgetful of their divine destiny. They have lost their way, and their hearts are torn by the ravages of hate and rancor. On the other hand, there are persons who unveil their inherent higher selves through the endurance of pain and deprivation and through noble acts of bravery and self sacrifice. The present war is teaching man to be brave, to be able to suffer, to understand, and to sacrifice.
Karthik, you need to move the page.
Yeah, yeah.
Sir.
Cure for selfishness needed. The disease of selfishness in mankind will need a cure that is not only universal in its application but drastic in nature. Selfishness is so deep rooted that it can be eradicated only if it is attacked from all sides. Real peace and happiness will dawn simultaneously when there is a purging of selfishness. The peace and happiness that come from self giving love are permanent. Even the worst sinners can become great saints if they have the courage and sincerity to invite a drastic and complete change of heart. Man will become sick of wanting, greed, hate. The present chaos and destruction will engulf the whole world. But in the future, this will be followed by a very long period in which there will be no war. The passing suffering and miseries of our times will be worth enduring for the sake of the long period of happiness that is to follow eventually. What will the present chaos lead to? How will it all end? It can only end in one way. Mankind will become sick of it all. Man will be sick of wanting and sick of fighting out of hatred. Greed and hatred will reach such intensity that everyone will become weary of them. The way out of the deadlock will be found through selflessness. The only alternative that can bring a solution will be to stop hating and to love, to stop wanting and to give, to stop dominating and to serve. Suffering generates understanding. Great suffering awakens great understanding. Supreme suffering fulfills its purpose and yields its true significance when it awakens an exhausted humanity and stirs within it a genuine longing for real understanding. Unprecedented suffering leads to unprecedented spiritual growth. It contributes to the construction of life on the unshakable foundation of the truth. It is now high time that universal suffering should hasten humanity to the turning point in its spiritual history. It is now high time that the very agonies of our times should become a medium for bringing a real understanding to human relationships. It is now high time for humanity to face squarely the true causes of the catastrophe that has overtaken it. It is now high time to seek a new experience of reality, to know that life is real and eternal is to inherit unfading bliss. It is time that man had this realization by being unified with its own self. So, one point that has come, the
Jim?
great suffering leads to the great spiritual uh, upheaval. What's so unprecedented suffering leads to unprecedented spiritual growth. This maybe we can discuss if you want. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
think
Jai
first
Baba, I
supreme
think.
suffering. Yeah, go ahead, Kama.
Oh, okay, sorry, I should let you moderate first. Suffering, this particular paragraph reminds me of the paragraph in The Conditions of Happiness, where Baba talks about the different kinds of vairagya: Shamshan Bhumi vairagya, cremation or burial ground detachment; Tivra vairagya or intense dispassion; and Purna vairagya. So, where he says the kind of detachment that really lasts is due to the understanding of suffering and its cause, which is securely based upon the unshakable knowledge that all things of this world are momentary and passing, and that any clinging to them is bound eventually to be a source of pain. Man seeks worldly objects of pleasure and tries to avoid that brings pain without realizing that he cannot have the one and eschew the other. So, lasting attachment, which brings freedom from all desires and attachments, is called Purna Vairagya or complete dispassion. So, this is on page 391, 392. Jai Baba.
Okay.
So that's why suffering is a benediction. I think
Yeah,
it's the word that Baba has given. Yeah.
okay. Let's
So
continue.
not worry when you are suffering. Yeah, then you have to surrender that suffering to Baba, like you do that for happiness. Baba wants to
True.
be suffer. Affirmation of truth through unification with the higher self. Man perceives the infinite self in all selves. He becomes free by outgrowing and discarding the limitations of the ego life. The individual soul has to realize with full consciousness his identity with the universal soul. Man has reorient Man shall reorient life in the light of the ancient truth and will readjust his attitude towards his neighbors in everyday life. To perceive the spiritual value of oneness is to promote real unity with cooperation. Brotherhood then becomes a spontaneous outcome of true perception. The new life that is based upon spiritual understanding is an affirmation of the truth. It is not something that belongs to utopia, but is completely practical. Now that humanity is thrown into the fire of bloody conflicts through immense anguish, it is experiencing the utter instability and futility of a life based on purely material conceptions. The hour is near when man, in his eager longing for real happiness, will seek its true source. Just a minute.
Which edition are you reading,
Jay,
Sanjay?
Seventh edition.
Okay. Yes, I saw one difference, but then it's okay. Continue. It's minor.
Someone raised his hand from a long time. JK.
Kama.
Jay Baba, yeah, there is a line out here that says the new life that is based upon spiritual understanding is an affirmation of the truth. So this is very clear understanding, spiritual understanding, and I also look at material understanding. What is the purpose of material life? What is the purpose of spiritual life? We are all human beings. We are all spiritual beings in a material body. This material body, which is gross, subtle, mental, is a medium for the spirit or the self or the consciousness of the soul to realize itself. That is Aham Brahmasmi, I am God. So what is interesting today is because of all this scientific, what I call as scientific materialism, the laws of nature based on laws of matter and laws of spirit. From my understanding, the laws of matter started getting scientific from 1500 AD with Galileo and all that. Today we have smartphones sending out ships. But the laws of the spirit or laws of what I call the spiritual life is already been discovered by the ancient, like the saints and for the last 5,000 years. So the conflict I see out here today is the emphasis toward the material life rather than the spiritual life. So what is needed is a balancing act between material life and spiritual life. Jai Baba.
Okay. Yeah.
Inherit
Yeah. Go ahead.
divine love through the God man. The time is also ripe when humanity will ardently seek to contact the embodiment of truth in the form of God man, Avatar, through whom it can be inspired and lifted into a spiritual understanding. It will accept the guidance that comes from divine authority. Only the outpouring of divine love can bring about spiritual awakening. In this critical time of universal suffering, humanity is becoming ready to turn towards its higher self and to fulfill the will of God. Divine love will perform the supreme miracle of bringing God into hearts of man and of getting him established in lasting and true happiness. It will satisfy the greatest need and longing of mankind. Divine love will make people selfless and helpful in their mutual relationships. It will bring about the ultimate solution of all problems. The new brotherhood on earth shall be fulfilled fact, and nations will be united in the fraternity of love and truth. My existence is for this love and this truth. To suffering humanity, I say, have hope. I have come to help you in understanding yourself to the cause
in
of God,
surrendering yourself.
in surrendering
Good.
yourself to the cause of God, and in accepting His grace of love and truth. I have come to help you in winning the one victory of all victories, to win yourself. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Okay. So
Chair, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. I just had one observation. So this is written in first person Baba, but then there's one line that's interesting here, right? The time is also ripe when humanity will ardently seek to contact the embodiment of truth in the form of God-man. So he's referring in first person right through, but then at a point there's also a third person reference here. OILS, our own inner loving self. We have to figure that out. That's our journey. Anyway, Kama, you want to say something?
So I was just pointing out the last line. I have come to help you in winning the one victory of all victories, to win yourself, capital self,
Capital S.
which is why we do the namaste in our Eastern tradition. And also in many of the Baba messages, we have noticed that, like, for example, in How to Love God, the last postulate, basically he talks about, where he says that the, let me see, yeah, to love God as he ought to be loved, we must live for God and die for God, knowing that the goal of all life is to love God and find him as our own self. So I think this is probably one of the definitions of what we mean by God. Is he somebody outside of us, or is he somebody inside, already within us? As Baba has given many examples where he says, I'm inside your heart, I'm like, there are too many people inside your heart, kind of thing, and you have to open up your heart. So the whole aspect of when we talk about loving God, it ultimately signifies loving our own innermost loving self. So this is the message subliminally given in all the messages of Baba and all the other saints also. But we somehow, the mind wants to focus on the form, which is also okay, because in the chapter on yoga and meditation, Baba says when you're on the spiritual path, you have to go through the personal form of God, but then you have to transcend to the impersonal aspect. Jai Baba.
Okay. Any other questions or insights before we move to summarizing this chapter and moving forward? So
yeah, I find this chapter very good as a separate PDF file to be shared with friends. It's a very there are people, friends we have who also are on somebody is in
various
Gita,
paths. Yeah.
there is gurus, it's a good share. That's what.
Yeah. Very neutral, very relevant, and very relevant to the times that we are in. Yes.
Correct. So you can try to make a separate PDF for this message. Yeah.
Sure.
From the PDF file.
Sure. So, in fact, that's another thing I wanted to do. Maybe just create all discourses as separate PDFs, and even attach it to these cards. Anyway, that's some homework for me. So let's just see this. So, what is the essence of this chapter? We start with the world storm, which is basically our pushing ourselves to the material limits and moving away from God. Then you go from conflict between the forces of light and darkness, cure for selfishness. And then that's the first time he talks about selflessness as well. And then says that this will continue and culminate in man becoming sick of wanting, greed, and hate. So even the factors of hate, which drive wars and that kind of action, will also peak, and man will eventually become sick of it. Then that beautiful para on suffering. Finally, truth dominates, and the last one is inheriting divine love through the God man. So in the affirmation of truth, the first reference to the avatar happens. I mean, first reference in this chapter. And then he talks about inheriting divine love through the God man, right? So This is
Yeah,
this is
bit scary in a sense that there are more suffering yet to come to the world. We have seen First World War and the Second, where millions of people got killed, partition, India, Pakistan, and then this Corona thing. So
I
that's what
think we are there.
indicates
I mean,
too. But it is Baba's timelines and Baba's way of saying suffering. It could be physical, or it could be mental, or whatever. We don't know, but I tend to think of this.
Somehow
I
I
think
have this deep feeling that Baba is going to break a few patterns which are in within us from ages, and we think it's a must, like eating food every day. So he's going to crack so many things, and it is going to happen in within this 20 years. So be ready. All the best to all of you and to me.
absolutely. I also have
It is,
this.
it is, it is, yeah. We are on the
This
edge. We are on the edge, and
Yeah,
we
till
need to
till
just pray to
2069.
Baba. Just pray to Baba.
the expression
Yeah.
that comes to my mind is wear your seatbelts.
Yes.
That's correct.
Right. So be ready. It's imminent. Anyway. So with that, let's get to the next chapter, Life of the Spirit.
Yeah, Jai Baba, I just want to make a comment. I think that Sanjay ji was talking about the suffering that is yet to come and all that. He just mentioned suffering is a benediction, which I think is a kind of balm for the soul.
Mhm.
And also, we understand from God Speaks, this is all in the divine dream of God. And the analogy to it is basically when we quote when the daily 24 hours, we have a waking state of 16 hours and 8 hours of sleep. And under that, you have two substates, the sound sleep state and the dream sleep. And we all know that when we dream in our sleep, it is as real as the waking state. Till we wake up from that sleeping dream, that dream is very real. So we wake up from the dream and realize it's only a dream. And probably nature was designed, the divine theme or script was designed in such a way for us to dream in our sleep, feel as if it's real because we are a participant and an observer, and then wake up from the dream and realize, my God, it was only a dream. So the the lesson out here is that the waking state is also a waking dream from which we need to awaken, which is what Baba's awakening is all about. That this whole thing is happening in the divine dream of God. So if we are able to detach ourselves and have this spiritual and material understanding, then probably whatever so-called apparent suffering. What is suffering? Apparent suffering is being attached to the body, the gross body, subtle body, mental body. And we know that the body is only a vehicle. So once we have that understanding, then whatever suffering we see outside ourselves is basically based on people's sanskaras and also because of the script that they have pre-planned before they took birth. Jai Baba.
Well said. I mean, the dream and the waking life are nothing but two different dimensions or two different planes of uh, small r reality, right? So the construct is different. Neither have any significance, and it's just that when you're in it, like when you're right now talking to each other and on this call, it there is a element of realness. There is an apparent realness, maybe, right? If I can use that expression. So there's an apparent realness. Like we know how in the dream there is absolutely, when you're in the dream, you actually feel the pain, pleasure, all of that, right? So anyway, good point. So we'll go to the next chapter, um, Life of the
Karthik,
Spirit. Sure,
I have a small comment here, maybe
please.
contextual. I would like to bring it in. This chapter as all other chapters in the discourse, are they timelined when this message was given?
Yes.
At what
I mean,
point of time?
it's possible to get it. It's not done in discourses, right? So if you go to the Awakener magazine or the Meher Baba journal, where most of these were serialized, that would be the timeline. Not necessarily that being final, because even in the Meher Baba journal and in Awakener, messages were given months. I mean, messages were published months after they were actually dictated by Baba. So yes and no to your question, but it's a good area of research.
Because some contextual references are there
On what's going on, at that time will throw more light on why Baba said what he said. Yes. Agreed.
Yes, the discourses were dictated between 1930. The discourses were dictated between 1938 to 1942 in the Meher Baba journal. And if anybody is interested, can go to the online Meher Baba Trust website. They have the Meher Baba journals. And if somebody can do the homework, they can try to relate the chapters in discourses and see when each chapter was published in the particular journal. And we know that was World War II time,
Yes.
Okay, so let's get to the next chapter. Just keep these para headings in mind as we go. So we are doing Life of the Spirit. The essence is we will understand Karma Yoga. We'll understand matter being something which is a pliable instrument. Firstly, it is subservient to spirit, and it is in the hands of spirit, a pliable instrument. Spirituality requires subordination of matter, not rejection. So matter is something that is required, but you have to subordinate it. Freedom of spirit expressed through dominion over matter. Again, the three paragraphs refer to the same thing, that the spirit is above matter and spirit needs matter, right? Spirituality is also all encompassing, so that covers the whole of life. And body is not necessarily a hindrance to spiritual life. And this is beautiful. Science, art, politics can serve spiritual needs. Detachment does not mean indifference. So it's not insensitivity to what's going on, but it's actually, detachment is explained in that para. We'll see very soon. True spirituality is comprehensive, all encompassing again. Divine love is a creative and dynamic response to environment. Spiritual understanding is not born out of blind imitation. So with that, we can go, and we can also rotate reading. So who wants to go next? Mamaji, Shiva, who's ready with their mics and are in a comfortable position to read?
Okay, I will read part of it.
Okay, Life of the Spirit. Please go ahead. Jai Baba.
Karthik, I will read one para after this.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so when Mama decides to stop.
Yeah, after this. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
In True Karma Yoga, the True Karma Yoga, that is the subtitle. In True Karma Yoga, or the life of perfect action, there is proper adjustment between the material and the spiritual aspects of life. In this type of life, consciousness is not fettered by mundane and material things, but at the same time, it is not allowed to run away from everyday existence. The mind is not allowed to be immersed in the material life of gnawing wants, nor is it allowed to be merged in spiritual bliss. It is used to face and tackle the problems of life from the point of view of spiritual understanding. Proper adjustment, matter as pliable instrument for expression of spirit. Proper adjustment between the material and the spiritual aspects of life is not secured by giving equal importance to them. It is not secured by taking something from the material and something from the spiritual and then striking a balance between the two. The spirit must and ever will have an inviolable primary over matter. However,
Primacy.
primacy over matter. However, the primacy is not expressed by avoiding or rejecting matter, but rather by using it as an adequate vehicle for the expression of the spirit. In intelligent adjustment, matter has to play the role of a pliable instrument for the self-manifestation of the spirit, and must not in any way become obtrusive in its own right. Just as a musical instrument is valuable only if it gives expression to the song of a musician and becomes a hindrance if it does not yield complete subservience. Matter is valuable if it gives free and adequate expression to the creative flow of life and becomes an obstacle if it interferes with it. Spirituality requires subordination of matter, not rejection. Owing to the multifarious cravings of the mind, matter has a tendency to assume importance for itself. For the drunkard, wine is everything. For the greedy, the hoarding of money is all important. And for the flirt, the chase of sensations in the supreme end of life is the supreme end of life. These are examples of how, through diverse cravings of the mind, matter becomes unduly obtrusive and perverts the expression of the spirit. The way to restore the dignity of spirit is not to reject matter, but to use it for the claims of the spirit. This is possible only when the spirit is free from all cravings and is fully conscious of its own true status. When this is achieved, an individual may have material goods but is not caught up in them. When necessary, he may use them as means. Okay. This is possible only when the spirit is free from all cravings and is fully conscious of its own true status. When this is achieved, an individual may have material goods but is not caught up in them. When necessary, he may use them as means for the life of the spirit, but he is not allured by them, nor does he become restless for them. He realizes that in themselves they do not constitute the real significance of life. He dwells in material and social environment without any hankering for them, and being unattached is able to convert them into spiritual life. Freedom of spirit expressed through dominion over matter. Domination over matter. When one's true adjustment between spirit and matter is secured, there is no phase of life that cannot be utilized for the expression of divinity. No longer is there any need to run away from everyday life and its tangles. The freedom of the spirit that is sought by avoiding contact with the world and retiring to a cave or to the mountains is a negative freedom. When such retirement is temporary and is meant to digest worldly experiences and develop detachment, it has its own advantages. It gives breathing time in the race of life. But when such retirement is grounded in fear of the world or lack of confidence in the spirit, it is far from helpful in attaining the real freedom. The real freedom is essentially positive and must express itself through unhampered dominion of the spirit over matter. This is the true life of the spirit. spirituality covers the whole of life. The life of spirit is the expression of infinity and as such knows no artificial limits. True spirituality is not to be mistaken for an exclusive enthusiasm for some fad. It is not concerned with any ism. When people seek spirituality apart from life, as if it had nothing to do with material world, their search is futile. All creeds and cults have tendency to emphasize some fragmentary aspect of life, but true spirituality is total in its outlook. The essence of spirituality does not consist in a specialized or narrow interest in some imagined part of life, but in a certain enlightened attitude to all the various situations that obtain in life. It covers and includes the whole life. All the material things of this world can be made subservient to the divine game, and when they are thus subordinated, they become auxiliary to the self-affirmation of the spirit. Can you move up? Body not necessarily hindrance to spiritual life. The value of material things depend upon the part they play in the life of the spirit. In themselves, they are neither good nor bad. They become good or bad according to whether they help or hinder the manifestation of divinity through them. Take, for example, the place of the physical body in the life of the spirit. It is a mistake to set up an antithesis between flesh and spirit. Such contrast almost inevitably ends in an unqualified condemnation of the body. The body obstructs spiritual fulfillment only if it is pampered as having claims in its own right. Its proper function is rightly understood as ancillary to spiritual purposes. The rider needs a horse if he is to fight a battle, though the horse can become an impediment if it refuses to be completely submissive to his will. In the same way, the spirit needs to be clothed in matter if it is to come into full possession of its own possibilities. Although the body can at times become a hindrance if it refuses to be compliant with requirements of the spirit. If the body aids to the claims of the spirit as it should, it is instrumental in bringing down the kingdom of heaven on earth. It becomes a vehicle for the release of divine life, and when it subserves this purpose, it might aptly be called the temple of God on earth. Since the physical body...
Any
Yes.
thoughts, reactions? Because we've been reading. Any observations?
This is
Go ahead.
very positive directions that Baba gives. Don't condemn the material body. It is a vehicle for the spiritual progress, or the manifestation of the spirit or the self within can be achieved only through the material body. So that we have to understand. Only the point that we need to keep it in mind is that we need to keep the body in its proper direction towards spiritual growth. That is very well stressed here. Clarity is given on that aspect.
Extending
Okay,
that
Baba.
to comment on that as an extension, not just that the spirit is important, the body is also important. It just has a different place and a different place in the larger scheme of things. Right? Kava, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just to add, like, it's like roti, kapda, makan, food, shelter, clothing, like in the self actualization pyramid of the Maslow's pyramid. It clearly talks about the basic needs that what I understand is the consciousness of the soul. We understand the soul doesn't change, the soul spirit self. But what is happening is from the Big Bang or the most original whim or the first initial urge of God, who am I? We are all drop souls like the raindrops that came from the ocean. We went through evolution. Now we are going through reincarnation and hopefully involution, maybe veiled. So, what we are seeing out here is that the consciousness of the soul needs the body, the material body, to liberate itself. The liberation can be, as we
Yes.
know, MON or Nirvana or Nirvikalpa Samadhi or Sahaja Samadhi, whatever is written. So, definitely the material body needs to be taken care of. And one of the ways I have done it, my own experience is that Hatha Yoga for the gross body and Kriya Yoga for the subtle body and Vipassana for the mental body. By the way, I did my fourth retreat in Joshua Tree National Park in California. My first retreat outside India. My three retreats were in India in Sarnath in 2012 and Dehradun in 2013 and 2015 was Dharamshala Dharamkot. That year, my mother passed away. And this year, basically, my father passed away and I did Vipassana without knowing it. I just got to know about it later. But my point is that the material body, to keep it in equilibrium. So the way to keep the gross body, subtle body, material body, uh, it had helped me to, like they say, first, the body is the temple of the soul. So Hatha Yoga is a very good way. And then you go into the subtle body, the breathing, you can do Kriya Yoga, Kundalini Yoga practice. And then the mental part, which is the most toughest, basically, because it deals with thoughts. Vipassana helped me. Of course, different strokes for different folks. Everybody should explore. But the material body is important to be healthy. Otherwise, the consciousness of the soul is not, it doesn't facilitate its progress. So that is why healthy body and mind is very important for the self to emancipate itself. So the material body can't live without the consciousness, and consciousness needs the material body to liberate itself on planet Earth. Jai Baba.
Oh, that's a lot of good stuff that you said there. So yeah, agreed. So I- we just have a page and a little more, I think. So Shiva, you want to take over now and read on till the
Yes,
end?
Karthik. Jai Baba.
Is
Jai
that
Baba.
okay with you,
Yes.
Mamaji?
Okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
Since the physical body and other material things can be used for the life of the spirit, true spirituality does not take any hostile attitude toward them, but seeks expression in and through them. Thus, a perfected person does not look down upon things of beauty or works of art, attainments of science, or achievements of politics. Things of beauty can be degraded by being made objects of craving or jealous and exclusive possessiveness. Works of art can often be used to augment the exploit, egoism, and other human frailties. The subtitle here is Science, Art, Politics Can Serve Spiritual Ends. Resuming, the attainments of science can be used for mutual destruction, as in modern wars. Political enthusiasm without spiritual insight can perpetuate social and international chaos. But all these can also be rightly handled and spiritualized. Things of beauty can become the source of purity, happiness, and inspiration. Works of art can ennoble and raise the consciousness of people. The attainments of science can redeem humanity from unnecessary suffering and handicaps. Political action can be instrumental in establishing a real brotherhood of humanity. The life of the spirit does not consist in turning away from worldly spheres of existence, but in reclaiming them for the divine purpose, which is to bring love, peace, happiness, beauty, and spiritual perfection within the reach of everyone. Detachment does not mean indifference. However, those who would live the life of the spirit must remain detached in the midst of worldly things without becoming cold or indifferent to them. Detachment should not be misunderstood as lack of appreciation. It is not only compatible with the true evaluation of things, but in its very condition. Craving creates delusion and prevents right perception. It nourishes obsessions and sustains the feeling of dependence upon external objects. Detachment promotes right understanding and facilitates perception of the true worth of things without making consciousness dependent upon external objects. To see things as they are is to grasp their real significance as parts of the manifestation of the one life, and to see through the veil of their apparent multiplicity is to be free from the insistent obsession for anything in its imagined isolation or exclusiveness. The life of the spirit is to be found in comprehensiveness that is free from clinging and in appreciation that is free from entanglement. It is a life of positive freedom in which the spirit infuses itself into matter and shines through it without submitting to any curtailment of its own claims. The things and the happenings of the worldly. Okay. True spirituality is comprehensive. The things and the happenings of this earthly existence are looked upon as extraneous only until they are engulfed in the advancing tide of comprehensive spirituality. When once they find their right place in the scheme of life, each of them is seen to participate in the symphony of creation. Then spirituality does not require a separate or exclusive expression. It does not become degraded by being concerned with the ordinary physical, intellectual, and emotional needs of people. The life of the spirit is a unified and integral existence that does not admit of exclusive or unrelated compartments. Divine love, a creative and dynamic response to environment. The life of the Spirit is an unceasing manifestation of divine love and spiritual understanding, and both these aspects of divinity are unrestricted in their universality and unchallengeable in their inclusiveness. Thus, divine love does not require any special type of context for making itself felt. It need not wait some rare moments for its expression, nor is it on the lookout for somber situations that savor of special sanctity. It discovers its expression in every incident and situation that may be passed over by an unenlightened person as too insignificant to deserve attention. Everything is of spiritual importance. Okay.
Yes.
Ordinary human love is released only under suitable conditions. It is a response to certain types of situations and is relative to them. But divine love, which springs from the source within, is independent of stimuli. It is released, therefore, even in circumstances that would be looked upon as unfavorable by those who have tasted only human love. If there is a lack of happiness or beauty or goodness in those by whom a perfect master is surrounded, these very things become for him the opportunity to shower his divine love on them and to redeem them from the state of material or spiritual poverty. His everyday responses to his worldly environment become expressions of dynamic and creative divinity, which spreads itself and spiritualizes everything he puts his mind to. Spiritual understanding not born of blind imitation. Spiritual understanding, which is the complementary aspect of the life of the spirit, must be distinguished from worldly wisdom, which is the quintessence of the conventions of the world. Spiritual wisdom does not consist in unquestioning acceptance of the ways of the world. The ways of the world are almost always the collective effect of the actions of materially inclined people. Worldly people consider something to be right and make it right for persons of similar inclination. Therefore, the blind following of conventions does not necessarily secure wise action. The life of the spirit cannot be a life of uncritical imitation. It must have its basis in the true understanding of values.
Okay, so adjustment, values, adjust are big takeaway words which we will see again and again. Like even when we last time read this, I was mentioning. Okay, so we are out of time.
Spiritual poverty.
Hmm.
Isn't it very interesting?
Yeah.
Uh, Could you please read that line again?
Pure poverty. I'm trying to find it.
Okay, I'll read later.
Yeah. No. Oh yeah. Okay.
I found it, Karthik, here.
Here it is.
Just
Here
a
it
moment.
is.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but please go ahead, Karthik.
Yeah. Go ahead. You read it.
If there is lack of happiness or beauty or goodness in those by whom a perfect master is surrounded, these very things become for him the opportunity to shower his divine love on them and to redeem them from the state of material or spiritual poverty. I think this
So
becomes the definition of divine love itself. It's out of pure kindness and
So he gives you and fulfills your spiritual poverty. Basically, that's what it's a beautiful term. Actually, we think our poverty is
Like
always
Baba Jan.
yeah, spiritual poverty. So we are trying to fulfill, redeem ourselves of our own poverty, spiritual poverty by reading books and going to Baba, visiting Samadhi. So we are all poor in that sense, actually, with various degrees, whatever.
we are definitely blessed in that sense. We have been given so much divine knowledge here, and I mean, all of us are here
It's just like Baba
together,
Jan.
right?
yeah, go ahead, Nehaji.
It's all right. Fine. Thank you, Baba. Thank you,
Hey,
Baba.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Finish what you're
this was
saying, and
just
we'll wrap
like
up with
Baba
that.
Jan or any other master, like Upasni Maharaj. They have so much to give and so much to share and to make you rich as a spiritual person. They have this capacity. But still, if you look at them or their appearance, it's all looks very uh, nothing. There is nothing much around them. So
Yeah.
it's too deep.
It's
It's too
very.
deep to understand.
And in that sense, Nehaji, I mean,
Ji,
with respect to spirituality, it's like
ji.
always it is our acceptance and our alignment that fulfills us. Not it's just our limitation that is preventing. That's the
Yes,
simple.
yes, yes, yes.
So your sanskaras.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
that
But
note,
that leads,
yeah,
I
go
go
ahead.
into action point. That leads us to us that there are actions we need to take to redeem ourselves from spiritual poverty. and Sadguru or Baba is there to help us. It's also our
Absolutely.
effort. Yeah, our own
Our
effort.
move, our
Yes,
recognition
yes.
of the nature of true values, and then from there go to receiving the grace to move from
Correct.
spiritual poverty. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Yes, that's why it is told that grace is always there. But whether we are able to receive it, whether the receptacle in us is able to get
Yeah.
it or take it.
Accept. Be open to it
Ready to
and then
receive.
receive it.
Yeah, yeah. The ceiling is broken or the umbrella is removed. You see.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that
That's
sense, I would
that's in
like to
our
add.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add one thing that gave me a lot of insight. It is not just doing what is necessary; it is also avoiding what must not be done. So it is both ways. So to be more receptive and also to come down on the resistance part. So both ways.
Right, right, right. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, so if we don't have any
Wow.
more thoughts, we'll wrap up. And
Karthik,
yeah, I
waiting
think
for your darshan.
I will stop recording in a minute. Mahu, good to see you. You were late, I guess. In fact, I was on another